Hi, welcome to the Catholic Corner. I'm Monsignor Walter Nolan. You know, our Catholic Church is a beautiful, beautiful church and a great expression of God's love. We have a lot to offer our communities. In addition to providing the sacraments, the Eucharist, the body and blood of our Lord, and the other sacraments like reconciliation, marrying couples, and burying those who are on their way to God's home. Many parishes have organizations like St. Vincent de Paul Society, helps the poor in a beautiful way, gives them dignity. We have youth ministry and ministry for those who have lost a loved one. I guess I could go on and on with the list of beautiful things we do for the people of God and for people who come to us and for our communities. Somehow or other, though, there are other needs that come to the fore. Individual parishes provide different ministries to their own unique communities. A ministry that is being more formally organized in our diocese is a counseling ministry to our parishes. My guests today are going to tell us about this very, very important local ministry. Maureen Fitzsimmons, thanks Maureen for being with us today. Maureen is the Director of Parish Counseling Services for the Diocese of Trenton, a board-certified and licensed professional counselor. Maureen has worked for our diocese for 39 years, served as a Director of Religious Ed for about 11, I think, 27 years as a counselor and program director for our Catholic Charities. Since 2003, Maureen has been Victim Assistance Coordinator for our diocese. In 2013, our Bishop David O'Connell presented Maureen with the Benemerente Medal. God bless you. Not too many people get that. This medal was instituted by Pope Gregory XVI and is conferred on someone who has exhibited long and exceptional service to the Catholic Church. And Maureen has certainly done that. Maureen's a mother, a grandmother, and a parishioner of a beautiful parish, Ascension Church in Bradley Beach. Again, Maureen, thanks a lot for being with us today. Stacy Harris has served as a registration supervisor in the Access, Help, and Information Center at Catholic Charities, Diocese of Trenton. Stacy earned a bachelor's degree in sociology from the City College of New York and a master's degree in administrative science from Fairleigh Dickinson University. Stacy has worked in the mental health field for 14 years. She is the first line of contact for consumers and referral sources calling for linkage to services offered by Catholic Charities of Trenton. Stacy, thanks again. God bless you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you both. Where do we begin? Maybe we can kind of go back to the very beginning. That's what the book of Genesis says, in the beginning. So we go back to the beginning. It's, the establishment of parish counseling programs, probably so needed. How did it all come about? How does that, who started that and who picked up the phone and said, we're going to do this?
Oh, well, it has a long history of being needed. In all the years that I work for Catholic Charities, very often receive phone calls from pastors, parish priests saying, we need a better way of helping our parishioners who are trying to access mental health counseling. Especially in New Jersey, the fees for individual counseling are just out of range for most people. Some people have insurance and some people don't. Also, our priests were concerned that they would be in a position that they could give referrals to Catholic Charities, or perhaps there were some alternatives. So that's where I became involved. I left Catholic Charities at that point and came to work directly for the diocese. And one of the responsibilities I was charged with was finding a group of Catholic licensed professional counselors or licensed clinical social workers who would be available to offer the services that we have established through the parish counseling program.
Terrific. And Stacy, were you at the very beginning of all of this also? I mean, you're with the diocese and you're with Catholic Charities, and you used to be with Catholic Charities, so all the links are there.
And Stacy is the first point of contact. This is a collaborative effort between the diocese and Catholic Charities. So it's really important that we work together. And Stacy and I have a long history of working together, so it was a good fit from the beginning.
So how does it work? Who gets the phone call first, and who calls who, and what happens?
All right, well, before the phone call, we need to get back to how a person applies for the parish counseling program. And that is through the pastor or the parish priest. Okay, so if I, Maureen Fitzsimmons, am experiencing marital problems, family problems, bereavement issues, job loss, those kinds of issues that people often turn to their priest or their pastor for some help, then I would go to my parish priest, and we try to simplify the process so that people don't have to spill their guts, so to speak. They can just basically say, it's a family problem, it's a marriage problem, it's a grieving problem. And the pastor or the parish priest signs a referral form, just one form. We tried to keep it simple. And the person signs a letter of understanding. And once that is done, then the paperwork is faxed to Stacy. So.
Yes, so once we get the fax from the parish, what happens is we'll contact the family, usually within an hour of the fax, or if it comes at the end of the business day, the next business day we'll contact them. And what we do is we do a pre-screening over the phone with the families or the parishioner and get demographic information along with a brief overview of the need of their service, of their counseling service. And then what we do is we condense that, write it up for whatever department it is that they may be referred to, and then we forward it to the best counselor that fits what their need is. So if a consumer is calling or a referral is coming from Mercer County, then we'll connect them with our Mercer County outpatient services for that particular service. If for any reason they are coming in and we can't match them with an appropriate clinician, then what we do is we'll refer them out back to Maureen at the diocese, and then she'll connect them with her resources outside of the agency.
Okay, so you have source different than Stacy's, and so you're more like in-house sources, and you're kind of on the outskirts here, knowing a lot of other good counselors. And
Yes.
So, and this serves all the families in our 4 counties?
Well, yes. There are a couple of steps that have to be taken first. When we first started talking about this program, we were about to include everybody because it's a charitable thing to do. And then we recognized that we were taking on perhaps more than both of our programs could handle. So it is restricted to parishioners, of parishes in the Diocese of Trenton. When we were talking earlier, Stacy said sometimes they'll get, after the Catholic Corner has been seen, people will call from Essex County, and they don't.
Because we're so beautiful.
So it is restricted to parishioners from the Diocese of Trenton. And yes, you've summarized it well. We were hoping that by extending the arm of Catholic Charities out into the diocese and having independent Catholic counselors, which is something that a lot of priests have been calling for over the years. And I'd like to say a word about the independent counselors. They are just incredible people. We'll talk about the fee in a moment, but the fee is substantially less. Their fee is substantially less than what they would get through a health insurance or a private payment. The going rate is about $125, $150 a session in and around the Diocese of Trenton. Our fee is $75 a session. Now, the copay is $25 always. Everyone is responsible for the $25 copay. If a person or a family cannot afford the additional $50, it is supplemented by the diocese. The money comes from the annual Catholic appeal, and we're very happy to be able to use that money to help parishioners in need.
And that's really, really what it's all about.
Yeah.
You know, taking the Lord's blessings and healing people, and at least knowing that we can walk with people. Can some parishes even help people if they can't even afford the 25?
That,
Is
of
that
course,
that's up to the
that's
individual
up to
pastor
the
or the
individual
individual
pastor
church,
or
which I know
or
a lot of
parish
guys would
priest.
be
Right.
willing to do things like that.
And we
you
have
know?
had that happen.
But it's nice to know that people have to have a little ownership too. Isn't it? That's an important step, I think. You know. So tell me a little bit now. We know who serves. Where does the counseling take place? I mean, will it be somewhat local, near them, or are there centers?
Well,
Stacey?
absolutely. What we do is we try to meet people where they are. So if we have consumers that are coming from our 4 counties, which is Monmouth, Ocean, Burlington, and Mercer County, what we did was we put together a catchment area. And so under Catholic Charities, while we have 4 locations that they can go to, we also say, okay, these are our local locations you can go to. And if they're close to that, then the consumer is okay with coming into those locations. But if for any reason there's a challenge to getting to these locations, sometimes we're able to, well, we'll refer it out to Maureen in most cases where the consumer will say, well, I can't come out here, it's too far. We'll refer it to Maureen and she'll connect them with a clinician that's closer to where they're located. Sometimes we'll have a satellite location that may be closer to them, so then we can refer them still to our program, but then that clinician in our program will meet them at that satellite location that's closest to them.
Now, do some of the parishes have a person who's certified but does counseling right on the parish grounds? I don't know if some of the parishes still have that.
Yes, some parishes do.
And that would be available if they fit the criteria of professionalism, et cetera?
Yes, yeah.
So they would be on your list.
They would be on my list. That's my list, yeah. We've having a counselor on site can be very beneficial. We recognize that. But there's also liability involved. So if a person sees someone from the extended program, those persons already they're covered by their own liability insurance, and there's no overhead because the consumer is going to that person's office, not on site in a parish.
Sure.
Yeah.
All little angles.
Yeah.
I can see when you started this program how it takes a while to get it all ironed out. What kind of issues can somebody take advantage of with your professional counselors? Marriage, bereavement. What's your experience so far?
Well, Stacy, you probably have more experience, because Stacy is the first point of contact. Everything filters through Stacy, so she gets
Like the first responder.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we get a lot of variety of referrals. People come in because they're going through a stressful time in their life. Like Maureen had mentioned earlier, you have job loss. Some are coming in because they are going through a grief period. And even though they may have lost their loved one a year or 2 ago, they're still having struggles and they want just the comfort to, talk to someone and get that, move on past the grief. I mean, we've had a variety of consumers that come in for so many different reasons. Some reasons are, a little bit more detailed than the others, but we service all kinds.
There are some parameters too, which we need to talk about. The program is limited to 6 sessions.
Okay.
And sometimes people raise their eyebrows when they 6 session. But I can tell you from 20 plus years of experience in the counseling field that the most work gets done early on. And when people know, for instance, when managed care companies began setting parameters, strict parameters, it was amazing how quickly people move through the process. So 6 is the magic number. And we certainly recognize that some people need something beyond that. Then that would be up to negotiating with Catholic Charities or with the individual counselor, the best way to proceed.
But it's important that the person takes some ownership knowing that there's nothing magical.
Yeah.
They got to do some work internally and allow themselves to be a part of wanting to be whole and wanting to grow.
Yes, yes. And that's where the $25 copay comes in.
Got you,
Because it
Maureen.
does give someone a sense of
Sure,
ownership
sure,
in the process, and also keeps them faithful to keeping appointments,
sure.
which is, we know through the years that's very problematic. When a clinician takes the time and effort to be at a certain place at a certain time, and the consumer doesn't arrive, it's discouraging. So. Even though the $25 may be a small amount, I think it does tie the person to the session.
Are there some people who are looking for help as far as maybe being addicted to something, or is that a whole different kind of program?
That is pretty much a different kind of program. What we did emphasize when we presented this program to the priests, incidentally, Sister Joanne, the Executive Director of Catholic Social Services, and I spoke to the priests at the convocation last year, introducing the parish counseling program. And one of the things that we hopefully made clear was that this is not a program for people in crisis. People in crisis need immediate referrals to a mental health agency or to the emergency room in the nearest hospital. So if a person comes to the priest in crisis, this would not be appropriate. And I think they understood that. I think the referrals that have been coming in have been pretty generic.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's important to know. Have the priests, I know you spoke to them, have they been maybe given some further understanding about not only the process, but who can benefit from this process? In other words, lots of folks would go to priests for lots of reasons. And the priest then could say, hey, this is an emergency, or this is something. So do they have an understanding of their own backgrounds of how to direct people to your agency or to an emergency room right away?
Well, hopefully they do. Certainly, we've explained those kinds of things to them. We've been in touch with them through emails, through faxes. We're trying to keep it in the forefront. And also there's a bulletin blurb that all parishes have received. And I recently decided, I was just talking to Stacy about this, to start visiting the receptionists and the secretaries, because they're the people who have some control over what goes in the bulletin. And I've noticed that it's popping up in more and more bulletins now. So because obviously the program is only as good as the people who will be entering it. And if people don't know about it, then we're just all sitting here waiting for the phone to ring.
But you know, I would think this, Stacy and Maureen, it sounds like it's the priest and the parish who at least initiate or have the form to fill out or whatever. But yet there's a vast number of people in that parish that might talk to people before they get to the priest or the pastor. And you mentioned the secretary or somebody or deacons or people like religious ed programs and the various programs that the parish has. And you know, all of a sudden, it can come in many ways, I bet, huh? Like a child could say, well, I can't get to religious ed because, well, you know, not that they're going to be, you know, everybody's going to be out there searching. But information comes in many, many ways. And if everybody has an idea, at least they can maybe touch and say, gee, why don't you go talk to Father?
Right.
Or why don't you go talk to so-and-so? And then all of a sudden, you know, then the wheels start to keep going.
Yeah. And toward that end, if I may, I met 2 weeks ago with principals of the schools. Now, in many cases, the principals are dealing with crisis issues. So I did have to make it clear that this was not, and this is not. Very often, when there's a disturbance in school, a child will be referred out and cannot return to school until he or she has a psych evaluation. That is not this program, okay? This is a program designed to help parishioners who are dealing with everyday issues that that will in some way impact themselves or their families.
Now, would this be a part of it? I'm just wondering, like, if somebody's going to be, say, remarried, sometimes someone say, well, you ought to have a little counseling before the remarriage. I mean, could this be part of your program, or is that something separate?
No, it can be, and that's wonderful that you mentioned it, because last week I had a meeting with the tribunal people.
Yeah.
And, you know, the tribunal people are the folks who examine marriages and are in the pathway of granting annulments.
Mm-hmm.
So because I've seen the pain that's associated with going through pulling up all of this past that you have to do to present your personal history or your testimony to the tribunal, they're folks who can very well take advantage. And the tribunal was very open to listening to the presentation and recommending to the advocates. I guess many parishes have annulment advocates, and they would be the people, because they're the people that sit down with the person who's going through the annulment process and would recognize that this person could benefit from some counseling.
You know, I can see from listening to you two and knowing you two, this program can actually just have a life that grows, because there are so many avenues. And I'm wondering if, is it the hard part is to try to find counselors sometimes in areas that you're comfortable with, and also are part of our faith commitment, so they understand what that dimension is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I would imagine that's an important dimension.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And most of the Catholic Charities counselors, or let me say many of them are Catholic, but everyone has an understanding of Catholic teaching. With one exception, all of the independent counselors are Catholic. And they were people who were very gracious about accepting a reduced fee. And one of them said to me, look, this is my way of giving back.
Isn't that wonderful?
And that was wonderful.
Isn't it wonderful?
It was.
And that's, everybody should have a little piece of that. Tell me, Stacey, if you don't mind, what are some of the advantages, and both of you, associated with parish counseling services compared to other avenues?
Well, I think that the advantage is that when they come to Catholic Charities to receive these services, there's a comfort level there. A lot of parishioners don't want to go outside of the church because they're afraid of the confidentiality, or, you know, or the judgment, or whatever the case may be. But when you come to Catholic Charities through this program, or any program that we offer, we have the confidentiality, we have the comfort. Being the frontline staff, when we speak to them on the phone, one of our biggest jobs is to listen. And when we're listening to them and we're letting them know that our ear is open, and you know, it's okay for you to tell us these issues that you're having and what you need help with, they tend to get comfortable and okay with coming out for services. So they have that advantage of coming in and getting the services that they need, and not worrying about, am I going to be judged, or is my, will my business be out there? That they know they can come in and they're still covered.
And you know, our good Holy Father, Pope Francis, has in so many ways, and our bishops, opened up in a sense, you know, a little fresh air, so to speak, about mercy, and almost the message is out there. Please come.
Yes.
You know, you come with your stories, come with your life, come and receive the Lord's mercy in so many different ways that we can offer that mercy, and people can be available to that mercy. Tell me, I'm a story guy, you know. I've always thought that every time you talk to Jesus, you know, he says, well, before I answer your question, I'll tell you a story. and that's true, right? It is. Any stories about so far? I mean, this program's only about a year old or so.
Yeah.
Any stories that you can say, you know, gee, this was a wonderful thing that happened in, you don't have to mention a parish, but anything that's happened that you're delighted about the work you're doing?
Stacey and I talked about this earlier, and it is, the program is really in its infancy.
Sure.
Catholic Charities offices have a customer satisfaction survey,
Yes.
and I know that they have gotten some good grades of what they are. We're not privy to, but the the directors of the particular Catholic Charities programs would have them. I haven't gotten any complaints, have I?
No, none at all.
So that's the good news. I did have a couple from one of our parishes who successfully completed 6 sessions and called me, well, the wife in the marriage called me and was raving about the counselor and was so happy that she received this referral. And again, we try to make it as seamless as possible. So this went to Stacy, who recognized that the location of this couple wouldn't work out well with the Catholic Charities site, sent it to me, hooked her up with a counselor who was practically around the corner. So that's one of the advantages of collaboration, working together to serve the needs of the people.
You mentioned before that this is open to the families in our diocese and our parishes, and they have to be a parishioner.
Yes.
Is there any, to me as a pastor, an ex-pastor, parishioners are like all of us. I mean, some go to church every morning, some weekends, and some kind of, even in the scriptures, there was always a story about the ones who hung in back of the tree to make sure, they might just want to wave a little bit. But we're all sons and daughters of God. We're all brothers and sisters, and sometimes you can do this, and sometimes we have a different personality. Can anybody sort of, call up and just say, hey, listen, I am part of our family, and I need some help?
Yeah. I had a call just a couple of weeks ago from a woman who said, I belong to XYZ parish. She said, now listen, I don't do envelopes.
Right,
I don't believe in envelopes. So if you're going to check on me, you won't find me in the envelope distribution list. And we talked, and we worked through it. We worked through it.
The work you're doing is marvelous work, just knowing that there's so many beautiful people out there, and they in turn give back in their own ways and their own, and there's so many wonderful stories of saints. And for more information, how do people who are part of our program can get in touch with you, or just call their local parish? What can they do?
Well, yes, either or. Get in touch with your pastor or priest, or there is a number that's going to come up on the screen, which is my personal office number, and I'll be glad to talk to anyone at any time about it.
So we can tell them, get a hold of Maureen or Stacy.
Or Stacy at the Access Center of Catholic Charities.
And that's Parish Counseling Services, Diocese of Trenton. Maureen Fitzsimmons, 609-403-7129. We love you. Be part of just God's goodness and mercy. And, sometimes we accept and sometimes we pass it on. But we're all part of the goodness of the Lord's blessings. Maureen, Stacy, thanks. Thanks for the work you do.